Hey, hello everyone. Welcome, friends. It is the 10th of February. So, another quiet day in the market. We closed, a bit on the negative side, but nothing crazy. I think the market is waiting for tomorrow's job numbers, and that's probably going to be an interesting catalyst going forward. But I wanted to start with these four charts just to kind of have an overall perspective of kind of where we are and really how much the market has been struggling over the past 4 months. So we've had this, a massive rally since the spring of last year, which was, followed by 6 months of pretty unrelentless buying, maybe a bit more if you add this candle in here. But then we kind of started to fall apart again in kind of at the beginning of November, I would say, right? October 10 is the day that I remember. But even in November, we tried to sell off below that low, and then we just kind of went sideways. So this is uh, the fourth month in here that the market is really struggling. We're almost halfway through it, and this $7,000 level has a bunch of issues. If you look at the weekly time frames, we've tested the level so many times, and it's still not being able to get any traction. I was also looking at some type of an expanding type of a formation in here, like an expanding triangle, maybe in a fourth wave. I don't know how else to really look at this. I mean, I've tried in so many ways, and even if they do that, that could be a final move followed by a sell-off. So I don't really trust that the market has enough power to really break through the upside and continue to push without some kind of a more significant correction. So, I am looking at this, as a potential wave one. I know I've floated the idea of maybe this being wave one of a larger wave of this a purple wave five of a wave one, and it's just not coming together. So it's very interesting because there's probably going to be some kind of a fake out happening in one way or another. So if we're going to go higher, maybe they'll fake us out one more time going lower, and then we start to squeeze a rally. But you can see they had a chance to do that, and they're continuing to, every time they approach this level, the momentum just kind of dies off. So, the other thought is that, yeah, maybe whatever number we can get in the jobs or something else, and that could create a new high, and then a big failure, and then a full-on reversal that would unleash this larger wave too. But the RSI, it's literally, we're literally in a range-bound market. It's futile to try to continue to guess the direction of this, but I am I like I said yesterday, I continue to remain hedge, and I have positions on the short side to protect me for that, and I will, get rid of those as soon as the market gives signs that it's trying to establish some sort of a trend, or be a little bit more serious about breaking to the upside. But so far, none of that is taking place. So it's a frustrating time for a lot of traders. So I don't want to, waste a bunch of time talking about the S&P. You kind of have my views. I'm looking again at those time frames in here to just kind of judge what's going on. I'm looking at the moving averages. They're all kind of flat with a little bit of overlap depending on the indices. There's movement in the value and growth, and it's just all over the place. So one thing I can tell you, it's just that this, are we doing a sideways correction instead of a correction in time rather than in price for a wave two, and we're about to embark in a larger wave three? I don't know. Anyway, let's jump over and take a look at at Bitcoin. But I just want to reiterate: sometimes you just don't have to have an answer for the market, right? Not every time, we got to know exactly where we are, but we know which levels are going to tell us, hey, get out of the way, or increase some kind of a positions. Now, looking at Bitcoin in here on a four chart, on the top left corner, you have the 3 month, then we have the 1 month, the 1 week, and the 1 day. So, I'm gonna go at the 3 month in here, and you can see, how beautifully the horizontal level. So every time Bitcoin broke out of a consolidation pattern, out of corrective pattern, it broke higher and then it came and retested it. This one in here, basically, it didn't have, I guess it was strong enough not to come all the way back towards, the highs of these candles, whatever this was, around 12, I don't know, even lower. Let me quickly see what that was. Just about 1200. So we didn't get all the way back there, but we kind of stopped here at about 3500 or so. And then, we broke higher. We came back, retested that. Then we broke higher again, and we're coming back and retested that high. And if you look here on the 1 month chart, you can even see it more clearly how interesting, right? They really couldn't close above that 60,000 level several times. Then we corrected, then we broke through it barely, and then we just sit there. And there was a big fight at the $60,000 level, corrective, but again, never with a serious close below that level, and that held really well. And then we pushed higher again. We came and tested this breakout a little bit in here to this drop, and now we're coming again to this kind of 60K level. It is an important mark. So if we get below there on a closing basis, the risk is that we continue to correct, right? And create who knows what kind of damage. And I'll talk about the wave count here. Now, on the weekly time frames, again, like I said yesterday, look, just simple pure candle analysis. You go up and you break down, and you have a level that's been faked out through a bullish and then an engulfing bearish, a bullish and then an engulfing bearish. And this market basically through both these patterns told you, hey, this is fishy. Things are about to look much worse. So we're breaking down and we're hitting 60. We're coming back and we're holding. The fact that we're lacking to continue higher, it tells me that there's still not enough conviction in here, or there's a big battle between bears and bulls. The pattern, if we look at the wave count, you could argue it's complete. I mean, I've had arguments that it is and it isn't, and it doesn't really matter if it is or not. It's not something that I would put my stake in the ground and say, yeah, it's complete, go long all the way to 98,000, because that's not how you trade these. If you want to trade a corrective pattern, from after a lows is established, you gotta wait for volume to come in. You gotta wait to have a pretty decent 5-way move of the lows, and even if you're not looking at the daily, but I would suggest that you do, because that could be a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, a nice little, even if that takes time, right? But even better, this B wave has to be taken out. And if you take that out without this being an X wave, which I showed on Twitter earlier, because that's the next, I'm not going to go crazy about, imagining that, this pattern, it's a 3-wave in here, and then you go into a flat to a B wave, and then you sell off. I don't want to complicate things when it comes to Elliott wave. Just keep them the simplest way possible. The first move off the highs, we're labeling it as a zigzag, okay, as an ABC, as a W. If this becomes a 5-wave move, then it's a wave A on the decline, and which means that we need to get a B, and then we need to get a C. But look, you could argue that this decline in here was a 5-wave move, right? This big move in here, right there. Okay, and you ended up going much higher, and it ended up actually being corrective. Okay, so you have ABC for a W, an X, and then another ABC for a Y. So you see how hard that is? It's not like so textbook that you can just tell exactly how that's going to end up being. So, but in terms of the kind of the way you go about it, in my experience, with Elliott wave, it's like this: you sell off the highs, and even this decline in here, right? It's a tough one. It's a tough one. I'll show you, and then I'll come back to the larger count. But look, it's not that easy to just see in here that that's a 5 wave move, and you know there's some troubles with it, you know, but you go 1 2 and then you have a wave 3 4 and 5, and if I go to the 6 hour you can see it maybe even a little bit better, okay, because you know the pattern starts to become clear. 1 2 1 2 3 4 and 5, 4 1 2 3 4 5. Then you have in here a wave 2, right? You have an A B C up there. Then you go down in a wave 3, you have a 4 that's a bit smaller than 2, that's fine, and then you get a wave 5 for a wave A. Then you pull up into the wave B and then you sell off in here, and you can go and play with this and say there's one more low maybe. You know, this jump is a bit too high for me, so I think everything that kind of happens now, it's probably going to be corrective against this move. You know, but again, it doesn't matter because if you do want to trade a pullback after this, you got to look at the 61.8. That would be kind of the way I would maybe go about this, although I would not really recommend it, but it would be something like you would pull this wave and then just, you know, wait for it to come maybe into like a 64, and then get out if it breaks 78.6. Obviously, if you're going to take this low, then that's over, and you know, you obviously the assumption was wrong that that's going to be where it's going to stop at that's 61.8. So 64 450 would be the level that I would watch in case this is an impulse of the low and you're looking to trade a move higher. But again, you're against the downtrend, which is kind of an dangerous thing to do. So anyway, going back to the, you know, to kind of the larger count to just explain that a little bit more, I'm always looking for the first zigzag, and then, you know, once this goes, if you're getting back above this B wave and you're holding above there, because there's many instances where you fail as an X, you know, then you continue to go, then you know, then you have you know, the wind at your back, and you can start to be long and move to new highs. So you're gonna have to give up these gains from here to here for that assurance, you know, if there is any in the market. But the likelihood is that if this is a very short wave too, that we need to run more complex, and you go in a WX, and you can do then, you know, you can go for a wave Y, and then the next decline begins and so on. Yes, this X wave could be a wave B if it goes up in 3 waves and it's kind of clean. It could be a B wave which has to retrace about 88.9%, almost 90% of this entire decline, and we can do that by going here and just looking at the fibs and going 61.8, and I could try to, you know, put those in there. Let's see, maybe I already have them. No, so let's go and, you know, 88%. Let's do that. Apply. So you would have to go to about 115 514, around 115 area. You would have to go there to qualify as a flat. You know, you would have to kind of climb up, and then, you know, that would be, instead of an X, if it would be a 3 wave move, it would be what we call you know, a regular flat, and then you would sharply drop down in 5 waves, and you know, you can just have you know, you can stop here, you can stop a little bit higher. uh, you know, there's no real like, you know, exact precise thing on that. You know, you're coming basically pretty close to this previous low, and then you go back up higher. You know, if this goes up, and I've explained this many times, if this goes up there, right, then you're getting a running flat, and then the market comes down in 5 waves, and then you go again, or you can come all the way down, and that becomes an expanded flat, and then you go. You see, so there's these ways of doing it. So what's the point in somebody sending me a chart, you know, asking me or showing me, you know, that it's going to go there, up there, and then it's going to come back down? Like, how do you know that? Right? You know what I mean? So it's just a lot of playing around, trying to get clicks with the charts, and just and this is why sometimes I get frustrated with ELLIOTT WAVE, because I get annoyed by the variations that people send out. Okay, so yeah, I know them. I know most of them. I know, I guess, all of them. So I'm not trying to complicate things, and I'm not trying to show anybody that my count is right or anything like that. It's just I'm taking it, basically step by step. And if it's going to be a zigzag, then let's look for the next move higher, which the closest one would be an X wave, right? The next one would be a B wave, and that takes three shapes. So let's see what happens. If this sells off, and so far, again, this is equality, and the fact that it's an equal move between C, and you can see in here, right? C versus A, 100%. The fact that it's an equal move, gives me a bit more conviction that it's probably an ABC. If we continue to move lower, or if we do something like this in here, you do some kind of a triangle now, right? And then you sell lower, then it's not a three-wave move anymore. Then it's a five-wave. So then you cannot have a wave W. Then you're going to have a wave A. Okay? Which means that then you're going to get a B, and then you're going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and you're going to get another move lower. So that's the normal way of a developing zigzag. It doesn't have to happen. Again, look at this move in here. Okay? Come on, it's been a tough one. You could have said that this is some kind of an ending move or what have you. You could have ended up right here and then bounced. So so that's why we got to look at sentiment, and kind of how the prices are dropping, the RSI, moving averages, all of those things. This news cycle with Bitcoin, capitulations, things like that, that could help identify a low a little bit better. But other than that, just so that's kind of where I'm at with this. I think it needs a little bit more time, in my viewing here, and I'm not ready to push it until I see some more buying kind of coming in. So listen, let me know what you think with this, with this wave count, and maybe you have another variation. I know I've looked at this as being a fourth wave, but I kind of gave that up because I don't think that the structure looks good for that. I don't think that, basically, what I'm saying by what I'm saying by that is that I don't think that this a sell-off in here, it's part of the same wave count as this. Okay, I think that this wave count completed, and we're beginning the second wave count, which means that that's a wave one, and this is probably a wave two. Could it be complete? Sure, and it doesn't have to be that high or that that deep. But again, I would love to see that go up there. Maybe do a little bit of a pullback, and then and then continue. Right, you're looking for that kind of a cup and handle look when you're kind of bottoming in here. You're going back up, and then you're selling off again, and then you're taking off. Right, so that's going to take some time. I just wanted to kind of do a little bit of this, a little bit more in-depth analysis of Bitcoin, just to kind of show you my kind of my thoughts in here, and just well, you can go complex again if you really want to, have a lot of imagination. Then then why not present something like this? Oh, that's a W, and that's an X, Chris, and that's a Y, and that's another X, okay, and that's another Z, and then you go. So you can really do that if you want to, but who's going to help? You know, I know kind of how it helps, and I know kind of some of these guys work or what have you. And I'm not trying to be sour or anything on stuff like this, but yeah, you can throw a bunch of counts and then just delete the ones that and then just show, oh, I was right. Look, it matched perfectly. Subscribe to my service. That's bullshit, right? So listen, I don't work like that, and for me, ELLIOTT WAVE, it's beautiful, but it's not everything. There is a lot of things that kind of have to work out, and again, one of the important ones is the market has to start acting right, and this is the weekly time frame, and we can go back to the daily, but you see this moving average, at least get me above this 20 moving average, Get the RSI from get it up above 40. And then if I go and look on the weekly, look how deep you are. Okay, you cannot be bullish. You cannot be bullish with an RSI, at least in my book, with an RSI on the weekly time frames that is at 30. Okay, it needs to get above 40. It needs to get above 40. It needs the structure of the lows. It needs the volume. It needs the buying, and then we can do something. So I hope this I hope this helps. If you have a tendency to rush into stuff, or if you quickly want to count a 5-way move of the low and call a move bullish, if you're eager about buying something, just think about these things, and I think they will probably help you just kind of sit down, relax, and marinate a bit more on kind of what's happening there with the price. So that's all, guys. I will see you tomorrow and see how the market reacts following the job numbers. All right, thank you. Bye bye.